Welcome back to the news at 10. The issue of unity of Nigeria has once again come to the fore of national discourse. Just this week, acting President Yemi Osinbajo reiterated the need for Nigeria to remain as one nation. The acting president was emphatic that those seeking the country's division do not realize that Nigeria is great today because of its number and size. On the other hand, the movement for the actualization of Biafra, Masob, successfully carried out a sit-at-home order this week to mark the 50th anniversary of agitations for the declaration of the Republic of Biafra. Join me now on the news at 10 to discuss Nigeria's unity is Dr. David Awarawo, a senior lecturer from the Department of History and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. It's great to have you on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Well, I know you're not a member of the Southeast, but did you think it was a good idea commemorating 50 years since the start of the war, I believe, 50 years ago? Do you think it was a good idea observing that on 30th of May, the sit-at-home protest?
Well, ideally, no, because you commemorate what is pleasant. But if you look at it from the broader point of view, you would say, well, what point were they trying to score? What were they trying to achieve? When you look at it from that point of view, then you qualify your no. Because the issues that were there in 1967, when the war started, the issues are still here. It's as if Nigerians have learned nothing, forgotten nothing.
And that's really bad, because you're supposed to learn from history or else it repeats itself.
Exactly.
So the country's size, excuse me, and economic power is so huge, according to the acting president. And he says that Nigeria must remain as one nation. And he reiterated that because, we have so many parts of the country that have been together for the past more than 50 years, we need to continue like that. Do you think that the vice president or the acting president really understands, the issues that are going on, the agitations in the east, and some of them in the north, and some of the ones in the southwest, and so on?
I think he does. But the problem arises from desirability and feasibility. What he said is what you expect him to say. That is what is desirable. But what about the question of feasibility? Mere saying it does not mean that it will happen just by itself. There are things that need to be done to ensure that what he has said, is actualized. It is the process of actualization that is the issue. Let me begin by saying that a large-sized country with a huge population is desirable. It has a very huge advantage, so many of them. There is no country in the world that is a great power or superpower that is not large. And so when you have small countries, banana republics, even if they're economically prosperous and all, they can't be, great powers. They can't be superpowers. So a large population, a large size, a huge country is desirable. But when a country is multi-ethnic and, the structure is heterogeneous, there are things that need to be done. It is those things, not having done those things. That is why the issues of 1967 are still with us.
Let's talk about those things that need to be done.
Good.
You just mentioned that.
Yes.
Go ahead and explain.
You see, when you have a multi-ethnic structure, in political theory, federalism is, prescribed as a way of, minimizing the issues that will lead to friction. That simply means that different regions, different parts of the country will have, a measure of autonomy for them to be able to carry on, where they have a few things linking them at the center, like foreign affairs, like the military, like custom, and things like that. Before, in 1951, when the Master's Constitution was, brought by the British, they saw the difficulties in operating it because it provided for something that was too centralized. So in 1954, to address that, they came up with the Listing Constitution, which provided for a true federal structure. That was abandoned in 1966. And from that time till now, somehow, Nigeria has not managed to return to it. If you read the contents of the 2005 conference and compare with the 2014 conference, they're almost the same. And the basic take away the details. The basic issue is true federalism. Why are we not returning to it? It's amazing. A few days ago, General Gowon gave a lecture in very close to my own time, by the way, in Isoko. Okay. And those were the issues he addressed. Why do we know where the solution is? And we don't seem to want to go there. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's a good thing you asked that question, because what I was going to ask is the role that these politicians and religious leaders and so on are supposed to play. Even traditional leaders are also supposed to prefer, they're also supposed to play a role. What role it is supposed to play in knowing the history of Nigeria, knowing how far that we have come, and then being able to predict how we should go. If you mentioned federalism, why do you think it's difficult for us to get back to that?
Well, I think there is fear, morbid fear, on the part of some section of some individuals, some section of the country, thinking that if a true federal structure is established, they will be disadvantaged. But I think that's an illusion. This country there is no part of this country that does not have enough resources to be able to, function well. And of course, when there is free lunch, people are lazy. When you know that this is what you have to harness it to be able to, live prosperously. You will harness it. It is that fear. You see, there's something in humans that abhors injustice, inequity, oppression. Parts of the country that have it's genuine, that have genuine feeling that they are oppressed, they are marginalized and all. Unless you address that, this issue won't go away. And so what needs to be done is those who are afraid that if a true federal structure were to be implemented, they will be disadvantaged. They need to throw that away and ensure that a true federal structure is put in place, implemented, so that equity, justice, fairness can. Once all of these things are in place, nobody will be agitating for, separation or, wanting to, to create a country of their own.
So, would you support calls for restructuring?
Sure. When the restructuring, true federalism, fiscal, all of them point to the same thing. Okay. Allow constant units of this country to have more autonomy, so that the things that bring us together that will cause friction will be less. And then let there be fairness, equity, justice. Once these things, just look at the appointments of the recent times. Without political linear and all, they are unfair. If you pick 20 for one part, 3 from, it's inequity. People will not accept it. It doesn't matter what you do, they will not accept it. These are the things that will disappear when the true federal structure is put in place, and then we stick to these principles. They are universal. And once humans genuinely feel that they are oppressed, they are marginalized, there is inequity, these agitations will not go away.
Would you say it is as a result of the kind of leadership that we have had over the years that has, brought this about, has raised these agitations again, and that we're seeing, more of that rose up last year up until this year?
Yes, of course. The leadership, the approach of a particular group of people to governance. Even though we don't have true federalism, before we return to it, now that we are still, moving between the unitary system and the federal system, swinging, back and forth, the extent to which a particular government pays attention to, equity, justice, fairness, is directly proportional to the level of agitation that you have. So the reason we're having it so intense in the past 18 months or so is because there's a tilt towards one side, having so much, some other sides not having, this feeling of inequity. And it is real. You can smell it, you can feel it, you can see it. These are things that need to be addressed. Those who have studied, instability in countries, civil wars, these are issues. Once there is political exclusion, you have agitation. Once there is inequity, you have agitation. These are things that will need to be addressed. So, even though the true federal structure has not been in place in 1966, the extent to which different governments have paid attention to equity, justice, fairness has been directly proportional to the scale of agitation.
So, what do you say to those who are agitating for separation, those who want a separate state to be called their own? What do you say to them, to help them understand the need for us to be united? What factors will help them realize the need for us to be united as one country?
Well, what I will say is the energy should be channeled towards getting the government to implement a more equitable structure, a genuinely federal structure. That is what I would say. Really, like I said before, if you look at the EU, 27 countries, virtually surrendering their sovereignty to enjoy that advantage of economy of scale, the advantage of lightness. You can't wish it away. So what I would say is the energy should be channeled towards, getting the government to implement true federal structure.
Dr. David Aworowo, it's been a pleasure, as always, having you on the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Dr. David Aworowo is with the University of Lagos of the Department of History and Strategic Studies. Now, Nigerian farmers have been advised to focus more on the cultivation of a new species of potato called orange-fleshed sweet potato. A call is coming from the International Potato Center, which says the new species has many advantages.
Over the years, several reports have identified lack of vitamin A as being responsible for blindness and sometimes death. Statistics also show that vitamin A is deficient in most diets in sub-Saharan Africa, also being a serious public health problem in Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Ghana. With this in mind, the International Potato Center in the last 3 years pioneered a project in Osun and Kwara states in Nigeria to grow orange-fleshed sweet potato, which contains high levels of vitamin A. Today, many are beneficiaries of this project, including Ademola Adepoju, who cultivates 2.5 acres of orange-fleshed sweet potato in Osun State. Adepoju is one of the few farmers who started the cultivation of this relatively new species of potato 3 years ago with the assistance of the International Potato Center. Orange-fleshed sweet potato is being promoted because of its high nutrient content. It has better carotene, and by the deep orange color of the flesh, the vitamin A content is higher than other potato species.
Our governments, they used to give vitamin A capsule to pregnant women, lactating women and children under 5 years old. But this is very expensive. That's where orange-fleshed sweet potato has been identified as one of those crops that can really contribute to combat vitamin A deficiency.
And because of that rich vitamin A content, the Osun State government has already integrated the orange-fleshed sweet potato into the menu in its school feeding program.
This vitamin A, the orange-fleshed sweet potato, was introduced and added to our menu too when we realized the high value content in vitamin A, because it has a lot of beta-carotene, which improves the eyesight of children.
Orange-fleshed sweet potato was introduced in 2014 by the International Potato Center to 3 pilot African countries, Nigeria, Ghana, and Burkina Faso.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Cristiano Ronaldo scores twice as Real Madrid outclass Juventus to retain the UEFA Champions League title. More coming up in sports news. Please stay with us.